Today's youth need teachers, volunteers, and most of all, well, they need you. I'm Doug Edwards, and I'm going to be talking with real youth mentors and students to give you the knowledge you need to be the best youth worker possible. This is Youth Worker on Fire. Today, Youth Worker Nation, we're here on Youth Worker on Fire with one of the guys that makes it happen, and that is Michael Helms. Michael has been with a lot of different companies, and knew Mike's dad before him. He was with Youth for Christ with me. He was our CPA. Then he went with the orange juice industry. In fact, they were the middlemen for between Germany and Brazil, and then Brazil bought the company, I believe. But your
actually, it was owned by, it's a Brazilian-owned company. Well, the company that built the ships were from Germany.
And stuff, right? Because you work there, Silvana.
Yes.
Okay.
But that time, the Brazilians cannot own a company in the United States. And then they had another separate name until they changed the laws. And then the Brazilians could say that this is our office outside of the country.
Yeah. Businesses do that all the time. And I didn't know that, though. So that's good to know. But I was with him for about a year, 6 months to a year with Youth for Christ, Campus Life. He was our CPA. Then he left, and basically left honorably because he said, you know what, you guys don't need me now. You don't need my level of help right now. So then he went into the industry and always been a good guy like that, and helping people.
Actually, I remember him telling the story. It was like they were looking for ways that they could cut costs. And he said, he went through everything. He goes, I don't think you need me. You could cut me out, and that would help. So
Yeah. And most people wouldn't say that, wouldn't do that. And they go, I don't think I need a job anymore. No, but he was very courageous and believed in what we were doing. But I hadn't met you, had not met your mom or your sister at that point at all. And then 6 years later, the church calls me, and I end up in Eustis. And first, by the way, you don't know this, but your dad calls me and said, hey, I know that you're thinking about coming up here. And I said, Dennis, I'm really not. So your dad goes back and he tells everybody, I don't think he's coming. Then the next thing your dad knows, what do you mean he's coming? Things transpired and we did that. But what I knew first about you had flown to Germany or somewhere there in Europe and caught one of those freighters that was a part of the company and took that freighter across the Atlantic back to Florida. And so you're in high school getting ready for your senior year, right? Junior year going to senior, or going into your junior?
It was between my sophomore and junior year. My dad was trying to help shape my future. I look back, he would probably have some better insights to me because I don't know if I really wanted to do it. And he was, oh, no, it's great. And he arranged for me to stay with a German family for 2 weeks. And actually the owner or one of the company officers the company that built the ship that the Brazilian company used for transporting the orange juice back and forth was built in Germany. So this was one of the guys that I stayed with his family. And then so I stayed with him for 2 weeks and we traveled around and did some things. And then they drove me on the Autobahn to Ghent, Belgium, and I got on the tanker ship. And my dad had arranged for this great experience for me with the captain. And he had gotten to know the captain over the years from when he was in port and in the United States. And so he had talked to him and they had this whole plan for me. And right before, as I get on the ship, the captain had a family emergency and he had to go back to Germany. So this new captain came on board, which was not part of this arrangement that my dad had worked out for me. And so now this new captain who doesn't even know who I am, my guy is gone. So I was just, I had a job on the ship and I was on the deck crew and we swabbed the deck, we washed the ship, we painted, we had all these pneumatic air tools for getting rid of rust and corrosion, and then we'd prime it and we'd paint it, and it was very exciting.
How long did that take?
It was about a 14-day trip, but it seemed like a really, really long trip.
14 days in the water is a long time.
Yeah, so you're just looking out, and some days you're looking down at the water, and then all you see is sky, and then you're looking down, and it was one of those, and it's not a comfortable kind of like, a cruise ship has all this extra stuff to make your ship more comfortable.
Baffling or something like that.
And so it makes it a little more smoother. So this wasn't but I'd have to work every day, and I got to eat in the officers' mess hall, their dining hall, but I ate my lunch with all the deck crew guys. So those guys they were all Spanish and Portuguese, and none of them could speak English.
You guys have known each other for a long time. Relationship was up and down. And now, you've got your foreign bride who's now in the country, and her parents are coming back and forth. Tell me what your brain was going through.
I mean, it wasn't a difficult thing for me. They never spoke English, and I kind of stumbled through Portuguese. It was important to her. It was her family. And so I was kind of happy. We did a lot of things with them. And so for me, it's normal. When you care for your parents. My parents, I had a good upbringing, good loving people. And I think she feels the same way. So, I mean, I guess it feels kind of normal. Growing up, we had exchange students. I'm going to say we had We had one Swedish exchange student. We had 2 German exchange students. So I was always used to being around people that, from a different culture and maybe had strong accents or that type of thing. So for me, it was kind of
Your
normal.
parents were very good about that, because I remember those times. And, we don't know what life is going to bring. We don't know how things are going to dovetail and how A through Z are going to connect somewhere along the way. And now you're connecting dots, and the dots aren't through connecting. Silvana?
My father-in-law always say that he sent Michael to Brazil to see what he's going to do with his life, and he come back with a wife. And it's like so many things has to be, like I said, so many dots has to be connected for us to finally get married in 1996, having been together now for gonna be 21 years, having two children. And it's like when you look back and you say, oh my gosh, how many things you have to go through, and how many times you have to have faith, how many times you have to believe that things is going to work out, because sometimes you don't know. But they do, because the Lord do have a purpose. They do. It's like sometimes people think that, oh no, the Lord has a purpose. And he knows way before or that you can see it. But looking back, you say, oh my gosh, how many things has to happen for us to be right now here and doing this and having the way we have. And one little thing, if one thing was wrong, then everything else is going to be fell apart. But it's not. Yes, in 1996, we got married, and my parents came. And we left for honeymoon. We left my parents with Dennis and Linda. And they've been so lovely. My parents love Dennis and Linda, always, because they always been so nice and supportive and receptive. And even so, they could not understand Portuguese or speak Portuguese. They still did everything to make them feel welcome, feel good. I do have an accent,
Really? I didn't notice that at all. And I started to say, is she from South Carolina? Or it's really a wonderful thing to hold on to. It's not that you're trying to hold on to it.
I do work hard not to have an accent, because again, you open your mouth.
Industry. You work in industry too.
Yes, and I work with Americans. Means that I have to speak in English, and I've been working since I came here in 1996. Yeah, I do try to lose the accent, but I just give up, I think. There's some words that I still have problems saying. In the end, people accept you. Sometimes they even like you more because you're a little bit different.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Because you talk a little bit different. Everybody around me, it's very supportive. And I always feel like when you ask me about if you feel homesick, my home is here now. You don't have this homesick. It's like I do miss my parents, but my home is here now. I'm going to be close to 50. It's half of my life now I'm spending here. Than it is. It's half and a half now.
Yeah.
Even so, I was not born here. I still think that is where my children were born. When my husband was born, that's the place that I have to be. And even so, I was born in Brazil. All my grandparents were born in Europe. We're not there either.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, my parents were born in Brazil. That's it. And I was born in Brazil, but they all came from Europe, from Italy, from Portugal, and from Austria. This world is so small. You think that is so big, but it's just a small world. You never know where you're going to end up or what you're going to do. Sometimes people like to come to the United States just to try a better life. I never, ever in my entire life thought that I would leave my country or go to live in another country because I love my country. I love the people there. It's never, never, ever been something that I want to do. Even speak English. I was a straight A student. The only C in my entire life was in English. And I remember coming home and crying when I see the C on my report card on my 5th grade, and crying, and I say, why I have to learn this language? I don't need it. I'm never, ever going to move away from this country. I'm never, ever going to have to need to speak another language. It's so funny because the day I got married, my mother repeat the same words to me. That was like, she saved that words and she says, now you know why you had to learn English. That was so funny.
God has a sense of humor.
I know.
And why were you willing to come to the United States? You love Brazil. Had you thought about maybe he should just come and live there?
I thought about it, but my mother said it'll be a better future for me and my kids.
Oh.
Yes. And even
That's
so,
very sacrificial for a
they
mom.
love me so much. And Michael can attest that. I'm their favorite. And
Okay, we got that down now.
she says that it's going to be best for my future, even professional, for careers, for my family, to have children. She thinks that's going to be a better place. That's why that's when you should come.
How hard was that transition? I got to hear this. Did you get homesick?
Yes, a lot. It's because, like I said, it's like I was very, very, very close to my parents. I did everything for them. Yes, it was not easy. Even so, they came here a lot because my father retired when we got married. They were able to come and stay for several months. Then that helps a lot because I had them here for a while. I was able to let them experience things that if they were in Brazil, they were not experienced. Like we took them to North Carolina, they saw snow for the first time and play and make snow angels and that was so funny, so nice. It's like children, you know?
Yes.
And we took them to Disney, and after the firework, I see my father cry that, I can die now. No, he was so happy. We took them to a cruise. Moving here was good for them too, on the sense I was not there 24 hours, but was able to give them things that I would not be able to do if I stayed there.
Mm-hmm. Michael is very accomplished.
Yes.
You know this. I know this.
He doesn't know that.
He does not know that. So let's talk about him. Tell us about Michael Helms and tell me who this guy is.
Yes.
I know he is, you know, but
yes,
he's not going to say it. Let's
he's I think he's his worst enemy. Mm-hmm. He doesn't believe in himself, or he doesn't think that what he's doing is good when everybody loves Michael. You know that.
Mm-hmm.
No?
Right.
You can take Michael anywhere, and Michael can talk to anybody. Mm-hmm. And he's smart. He's funny. He has a very good sense of humor, and I'm happy because our daughters got his sense of humor. No?
That's good.
Very artistic, very creative. Even so, he doesn't believe that.
Yeah.
It's just that very loving person. He cares for others and care for the family. Is a very good husband and a wonderful father. He cares
so deeply,
more than you think he cares,
right.
But he doesn't show that, mm-hmm. And that is sometimes works against him. Mm-hmm. No, but it's like I said, when God put two people together, there is a purpose for that too. Mm-hmm. There is a purpose that thinks that I admire on him, and he thinks that he admires on me. There is things that is our weakness, like things that I wish I'll be like him, mm-hmm. Yes. And then things that I am more, I'll help him on that. And we complement each other. He likes to dream. I like to stay on the floor.
What will you guys say about each other?
One of the things she's like, somebody has to keep their foot on the ground. And so one day I
You're
said,
the anchor.
Yes.
Exactly. One day I said, wouldn't it be so great to walk on the moon? And she says, can't you just stay here with me and the family? And I said, I'll be back. I just want to walk on the moon.
Just for a few days back. Or maybe an hour.
But that's what works. Okay, mm-hmm. Sometimes people think in marriages and relationships, it's just like if the two of us is flying, it's going to be difficult. If two of them sink on the floor, it'll be difficult. We meet halfway, okay? With his dreams, with me being so worried about, financially, I'm so logical. I'm like, no. And he's more like the dreamer. And, it's going to work out. No, it's not going to work out. No, that's something that it's about the marriage, that you work together.
Balance.
And that's why we are together for so long, because yes, everybody has problems, everybody has disagreements, everybody, but it's how you handle that and how you give up a little bit, he gives up a little bit, and we meet in the middle. That's the man I saw, that's the man I married, and that is why I stay with him, because I can see past.
Yeah. And by the way,
can see
Michael,
deeper.
everybody believes that because she's the wife, and wives only speak truth.
Yes, we do.
And
We are
so
right
mostly the
all the
truth we
time.
don't want to hear. Let's talk about influences, though. Michael, middle school, high school, college, who is that one person that influenced you the most that just kind of comes to your mind? Not your mom, your dad, because they did. They were incredible. So were your parents, Silvana. But is there one person, whether it's coach, teacher, principal, volunteer, that just, when you think of, man, that one light bulb, who is that person, and why?
Well, of course, there's a lot of people that I guess have influenced our lives in a positive way, but I would have to say you influenced me in a big way.
Well, thank you.
Going through high school, I was getting involved in photography, and you were doing all these media presentations. So I started taking pictures with you. You showed me how you had learned from an NFL photographer, and you were sharing those things with me. And so we would, we were at high school basketball games and football games, and then we took pictures of the students, and we were doing these media presentations. And that was back before we had a lot of video capability, but we were
archaic stuff we used.
Exactly. I mean, we would have 9 slide projectors all set up at the wall, and we were simulating movement with multiple slides and having these really motivational pep rallies for the students. And I just saw, we did some baccalaureate programs at the school, and so I saw people moved by some of the presentations that we did. We did it at the church and for special events, and you saw the power of what these images and the music and telling a story, and that really affected me. So when I went to college, I always enjoyed advertising, so I enjoyed the visual. I took every photography class in college that they offered. I took the video class, the film class, all the photography, black and white, color, because it was always something that I wanted to do better at. And then later on in life, now, right now I'm producing TV commercials. So we're writing commercials, we're shooting the commercial, using all these cameras. And
for the people who don't know, when you're in New York City, I mean, we were on the top of the heap. You were in some of the best studios there.
Yeah, in the studios, I came out of school, so in the entertainment industry, there is no, you kind of start at the bottom. So everybody, whether you have a degree or not, and I had already gone to college and got my bachelor's degree, and then I decided to do the audio side. And a lot of those people that work in the studios, they went to the School of Hard Knocks. There was no school for them when they were starting out. So we went there. We all started as interns. And you're sitting at the front desk answering the phone, ordering food for the different rooms. And because it's New York City, there was a lot of hip-hop being recorded and some R&B, and there was some rock and roll and things like that too. But it was definitely an education. Because I'd already gone to school, they let you, next thing you know, you're an assistant engineer on some of the sessions, but then you're back at the front desk. And then, maybe a couple of weeks later, you get to spend some more time in the studio with the groups and doing work, and then you're back at the desk. But eventually you get to be an assistant engineer full time. So now it's an hourly rate versus a flat rate as an intern. And so it just kind of went up from there. And then talking about, making contacts and networking, everyone says, oh, networking is so important. And yeah. Well, it really is, because a lot of the engineers that I met during that time, one of the engineers went to another studio. And then one day he called up, and I was looking for a move, I think, to change to another studio. And I get a call from this other engineer, said, hey, I hear you're looking for a job. I'm like, how in the world did he know? And that's how I ended up moving to another studio. And I went from an assistant engineering position to a full-time engineering position there, doing more advertising and things like that. So it was really an interesting experience. It was fun. It's fast paced. I got to meet some great, musicians as well as, voiceover talent and actors and things like that over the years.
I'm not even going to let you tell about the one because I want people to go to your podcast, Up to You, and where you talk about this one particular guy. And great podcast that you did, a solo podcast there about people that you meet and about this particular guy who was so famous. So Up to You is Michael's podcast. You need to go listen to that. And also because you are the professional, I got to dabble and kind of create chaos. And guys like you went to the whole nother level and became professionals. And so now, and this in Youth Worker Nation, this is the gig here. And that is people like Michael, people like Silvana, you encounter when they're younger, and they're the ones who set the pace for you years later. And then you've done that over and over and over for me, personally.
But it does show how, how that influence, that early year, you were just, I don't know why you got me involved in the photography, but I loved it. I enjoyed it. We had a lot of fun. We spent all night, putting programs together.
Let me tell you why. Number one, you're artistic and you wanted to. There's those people that want it and you see it.
But that affected me throughout my life, and a lot of those decisions were made because it was always a joy for me to do that. And so, but I thank you for whether you meant to do it, you did it.
I meant to influence people. And the funny thing was, I never intended to really influence them in media. I meant to influence them with Jesus Christ. But God used those tools to bring to me. And by the way, I took a film class at App State. By the way, what a place to take photography and go and shoot pictures. One of the most beautiful places in the world is Boone and Grandfather Mountain and all that, and your parents live at Blund Rock up the street. I felt like it was like heaven to wake up there and walk to class every day. I mean, it was that for me. I took a film class. It was the most horrible class I'd ever taken in my life. And here years later, in Silvana, I thought skiing was absolutely worthless, and I could have, for a credit hour at App State, taken skiing for an entire semester each year. And what I spent the last 35 years doing was skiing and snowboarding with students. It's not worth my time, right? Just like English, right? But yeah, Michael, and I said this to either you or your dad or both, and that is these major transitions since I've moved to Florida, your dad and or you and your dad have been there for me. So this whole podcast is because of you. Showed up for lunch one day, just like he showed up in Brazil one day, right? And tells me about podcasting, and I don't think I've listened to more than 0.001% of a podcast ever. And the light bulb went on, and here we are. So thank you for saying that, and thanks for keeping and doing that. Tell me about Silvana, though. You said some of that. But from the time you saw her to the time that you knew that you had to marry her, that this is the girl, and I tell people this, it's not who you can live with, it's who you can't live without. And I got a feeling that that's what happened to you. Is that right?
I think so. I mean, it was one of those things you just, of course, all the relationships you have in your life, you compare and contrast, and then
you're an analyst.
Yeah, or at least I'm like going, but I'm watching her, and like I said, I wasn't planning to go there to propose. I just went there, and I'm watching her, and I'm going, oh, no, stop. And I was like, oh, what? She's just amazing. And I'm like, no, and I'm just trying to be, and so that.
Logical the first time in your life, right?
Exactly. But even now, like I see her like at work, yes, she always talks about how she feels like no one can understand her very well with her accent. But at work, everybody loves her. Mm-hmm. She gets things done. She's not mean. She's not manipulative. She helps others, and then when she needs something, they're happy to return the favor. Mm-hmm. And so everybody is very helpful to her. And so it's kind of interesting and.
Plus, I hug everybody.
Oh, yeah, that's a big deal.
She's a hugger.
Because I'm Brazilian, I can do that.
That's right. I'm Brazilian. It's okay.
She, and sometimes she says things that are, sometimes she reverses things, and it's really fun. It's funny, and she laughs at herself, and other people laugh. One of her coworkers said, "Only you could get away with that." I remember one time I think it was a Father's Day weekend or something, and she went and she said, "Well, happy Father's Day," and he said, "Well, I'm not a father," and then someone said, "Well, happy Father's Day to your father," and he goes, "Well, my father's passed away," and she goes, "Well,
I'm sure your father to somebody. No, your father figure to somebody. So happy Father's Day." And I hug him, and he start crying. He says, "Oh, thank you so much." And Eloisa said, "Oh, only you can get away with that."
You took it till he finally received it.
So she's just open and kind and friendly, and does whatever she can, and so she's well loved, well liked in her office, and plus she does a great job. She does everything. I mean, she keeps track of everything. She keeps great records. Talking about, we all in this day and age, we have to make sure we cover ourselves well and document, and she's one of those people, and she's had the opportunity to save some managers for like, well, actually I think I have that email, because the client's saying, "No, we didn't do that." It's like, well, actually on this email you've said this, and so she's just really good at her job, and so whatever she does, she's very good at it. So
You're kind and you're detailed. And to
Yes.
be kind, and that is a gift, because everybody's detailed or not kind.
That's what I do. I'm a project manager.
Yeah.
But I do like to managing everything else.
You'd like to be
Michael
in
says,
control.
"Don't project manage me."
That's right.
But
I got a project manager in
I
my
know.
house. My wife.
I know. It's just it's one of my talents. I don't have many, but yes, I'm very detailed, and if you give me a project and a task, then I can make sure everything gets accomplished on time and perfect. People can trust that it's gonna get done. But I do with love. In the past, some of my ex-bosses are like, "You need to be more assertive. You need to be, because you're so gullible, you're so sweet. People it's not gonna trust you. They're gonna take advantage of you." And I try to change, but it does not work out. That's who I am. I like to love on people. I am nice, and I'm not going to pretend I'm not nice, and I'm not going to be angry, and I'm not going to play the game. I'm just going to love on you. And it's working out, because people can trust me. They know that I'm not going to stab nobody in the back, and they see that is genuine. Because sometimes people do, but just to get something.
Yes.
But then when they watch over years that, I think she's nice, because that's the way she do all the time. Then it pays off in the end. It's not easy, like working full time with 2 kids. It's always been crazy, but we did it. We try our best. And with the kids, and trying to engage them on the church, in things, in youth activities, and try to make sure that they know the Lord and what's right and who's wrong. But always love everybody, love each other, and love other people, because we always, and something that I always want. I want balanced kids. I choose a husband that it's balanced too. I don't like nothing that too good or too bad. The middle, the balance. No, that's important for me.
Yeah, yeah. And Gabriella and Isabella. Now, Isabella had in student ministry. Yes. Now I have, ended up having people's great grandkids, but no, I'm joking. But anyway, I mean, the children I had, I stayed long enough, and now I had their children, and so Gabriella did not get to, but got to experience her in your mom and dad's home up in Blowing Rock, and just, and of course, get to see her around here, but that was more intimate. Saw how much she loves her grandparents, and they're international kids. Michael and I talked about that, so let's talk about that. They're international kids. You also just took them to New York City for the first time. So let's talk about them and them being brought up, U.S. citizens, born in America, all that. But let's talk about Brazilian travel for them and what that's like.
I don't know how many times the girls got to go to Brazil, but I want to say since we were married, I want to say eight or 10 times or something like that, that we had gone back and forth. But I was sitting at a restaurant with the family in Brazil, and I was trying to get Isabella to, because I'm sitting there kind of watching. We're sitting at this restaurant. There's a band playing, singing in Portuguese, and we're eating with her Brazilian grandparents. And I kept saying, Isabella, I said, isn't this, yesterday we were in Florida sitting at our house, and now we're here. And I said, isn't that interesting or amazing? And she was just like, Dad, you're weird. You know? So she wasn't, I'm hoping someday she...
True young lady,
but I wanted her to kind of,
right.
I wanted her to kind of understand and appreciate that, that's not a common thing. There's not a lot of kids out there that are, experiencing something like that. So, but we wanted them to go, because when we went to Brazil, it wasn't a lot of, vacation, like touring around type stuff. We were with the family. Mm-hmm. We went shopping for a refrigerator. We went,
It's always a crisis.
Yeah,
right.
We go there. We were always trying to make sure her parents were, had everything that they needed. Something broke, or, they needed a new toilet, or they needed a new something. So we were very involved in going around shopping and going to the grocery store. And Silvana's cousin owns a grocery store. So we would always go to this grocery store, and I got to know her cousin and, spent time with them as well. So I think they've seen a little bit of it. Silvana always wanted to teach them Portuguese. And for whatever reason, that's a tough one. And because I didn't speak fluent Portuguese, if she and I had communicated all the time in Portuguese, I think that would have helped.
Yeah.
It's my fault. It's because since we were living here and I went to work, 3 months after we moved here, after we got married, I went to work. Then my English was awful. It's still not good, but it was much worse. Then we want to speak English home just because we need to have me speaking English better for my work. Mm-hmm. Then I never took the time to speak only Portuguese with Michael. That means that his Portuguese never got that great.
Yeah.
Then when the kids were born, I speak Portuguese with them. And my parents were here more often. They were speaking more. But by the time I think they were like 3 or 4, they completely stopped speaking in Portuguese or responding back. If they respond back, they respond back in English. It's because nobody around them at school speak Portuguese. And they feel like, no, I'm not going to speak Portuguese.
I don't want to be weird.
Yes, but
them,
when they were little, they were speaking and understand much, much, much more. By the time they went to school, they really didn't want to speak or even say the Portuguese. My parents got sick and they were not able to come here very often as they did in the beginning. Then we didn't have my parents here to speak in Portuguese with them. And then when they passed away, they didn't have many other people to speak Portuguese. I have a friend that her mother's here, her sister, they have the whole people living here with them or around them. Then her daughter, that's one of my daughter's best friends, she speaks Portuguese fluent, but they had that Portuguese community close to them. I don't, and my kids didn't. Then that's one of the reasons. But I think they still, maybe even so they don't speak, they were exposed to that. Mm-hmm. Yes. They understand. They were exposed. They live with my parents here, taking care of them when they were little. And maybe someday when they grow up, that'll be important for them because in Brazil, you have dual citizenship. Means that they do have 2 birth certificates.
So they do?
Yes,
okay.
They are half Brazilian, half American. And they always going to be. Brazil don't force you to drop one. When they are 18, they need to choose their primary. They, of course, going to be American because that's where they live here. Right. But they will not lose their Brazilian citizenship. They will always have that.
So it'd be seamless if they ever wanted to move there for a period of time.
Yes,
and
they
whatever.
do have 2 passports, 2 birth certificates. When they go to Brazil, they don't need visa, and they never will need visa because they're always going to be Brazilians. But at the same time, when they turn 18, they will become Americans primary.
Yes. Tell us about the things that you had to do to help your family, especially in the case of one of your siblings.
Yes, I have two brothers. I'm the oldest one. I have a middle brother that he's just a year and a half younger than me. And then my younger brother is 5 years younger than me. When I was starting high school, my parents moved to another city. And my brother was 12 years old. I was 14. And when we moved to that city, my brother got involved with a very bad group of friends, and he started taking drugs when he was 12 years old. He was a very smart, handsome boy, but he got involved with drugs. That's been very tough to my parents because my parents never had to deal with that with themselves or anybody with their family. Then my brother was the first one. And they really didn't know how to handle. Okay, for many years, I think it was more the hiding or trying to find out how bad it was. And of course, confrontation, it did not work. It becomes worse with the years going by until one of the sheriffs from the city that was friend with my father says, we are getting ready to bust this group of drugs dealer. Your son is one of them. And if you don't do something about it, he's going to get arrested. He just told my father because my father was very, always his whole life, he was very honest man, very hard worker, very honest, and was a shame for him to have a son doing this type of things. Or even find out that he was stealing for drugs. He was stealing inside our home and outside. Then my father was very ashamed of that. Then he actually moved back to José Bonifácio, that's my home city, to be able to take my brother away from that group of drugs and life. Yes, gave up a good job that he had, left me there because I was going to college and I was still living with my parents. And they moved back to José Bonifácio with no job, just to start again, to try to take my brother away from that situation. What they didn't know is that they were just taking the problem with them. My brother was the problem. He was the leader. And taking him away from that city, left my father's good job, left everything behind, trying to save my brother. He was just transfer my brother to another city now that was going to be affected by his influence. We had a very, very tough time. We tried to put him in rehab several times. My father didn't have any more money to put him through. Then I actually had to work 2 jobs to be able to pay for my brother's rehab. Oh, wow. And in a sense, it helps me because when I went through college, I could not spend the money. I could not go to parties. I didn't have extra money because everything that I had, I have to send it back to my parents to be able to help them to pay for the rehab for my brother.
Yes.
And then I didn't have time to, even if I want to get in trouble, because I actually saw the dark side of the drugs and what it was doing with my family. And my young brother, instead of follow my footsteps, of course he follows my middle brother's footsteps, and he was getting in trouble too. Oh, wow. And that was unbearable for my parents. It's like, and you again, they blame themselves.
Yes.
Even until they die, my parents will always blame themselves. Like, what we did wrong, what did we miss, why they turned out like that. And I always tell them, it was not your fault. I am your children too. I had the same upbringing.
Yes.
I am a year and a half older than him. And I have the same parents, the same upbringing, the same everything. And it's not your fault that he turned out like that and I didn't. But they always blame themselves. It's very difficult to get help because one thing My parents was very ashamed. My family were not rich, but my grandparents were. We came from a line of family that the airport was named in the name of my uncle. The school that I grew up and I went has my uncle's name, my last name on the school. We have street names after our last name.
Wow.
It's very difficult and shameful for my father now has to have a son that's doing what he's doing. Plus, he was stealing. He's just like, I don't have any jewel that my parents gave to me when I was little because he stole everything. He used to steal checks from my checkbook. And of course, he gets on the middle, the sheets that on the middle of the check that you don't know until you hit the number, it doesn't know. He used to steal things from my parents' house, like blenders, microwaves,
They couldn't have
rugs.
anything. They couldn't have anything.
Yes, anything he could sell to get drugs, he was on that time.
Yeah.
Laundry detergent. If it was not open, like food items, if it was not open, then he disappeared.
Yeah.
And it's put a stress on my parents, unbelievable. Even when my parents come here, when I move here, and my parents come to visit and stay with us, and I was trying to take them away from that stress, that my brother was putting on them. Of course, he makes things worse because he wants attention. Even with them here, he wants to find a way to hurt them. Then they were here, but they were always calling Brazil. They're always trying to figure out what's happening. One time he destroyed the whole house. No, he stabbed my other brother on Christmas Day because my parents were not there. It's like, it's not easy. And again, we put him in probably 10 rehab center.
Which cost a lot of money.
Cost because all of them was paid for. Okay,
Really?
Even the ones that was church related, my parents still have to every month send food and send the clothes and send and money that they don't have. Then I'm the one that have to do it. Even when we were married, and that's another quality that Michael have. He never say, we're not going to help your parents. You're not going to do this. He's 100% support them because we were trying to they come to a point that they didn't have any more money even for them to eat themselves because everything was spending on my brothers or trying to clean my brother up or try to prevent him from go to jail or one after the other. And we have so many people that thought that, oh yes, we can fix that. We can do. He's gonna go with us. We're gonna take him to this rehab center. He stayed there for 2 years. He was actually at one point he was offered a position at the clinic to help other people, and then they found out that he was actually leading the people to do bad things. He left the place there. He was doing drugs the next week. And again, he always, when I go talk to him, he always come to me, you please help me one more time. This is going to be the last time. It's going to be my chance. And of course, I always did. I always find a way to take from my own, to give it to him, to trying to help because I want to make my parents happy. And I saw how much stress was putting on my parents, but he only tells me what I want to hear. And looking back, it's like everything is manipulative. Everything was just to get what he really wants.
I'm going to say this too for Youth Worker Nation, and you can continue on. I want you to continue, and that is that they become con men. Or con women. They know how to say the things you want to hear because everyone wants hope. And it is that desperate of a situation. It is that evil of a situation to where it will take everything from you. And even here he was conning the people in the rehab center.
Yes.
And which are trained to deal with this. And here's families where you're not trained as families how to deal with this sort of thing. This is the sort of thing you try to keep your students out of. It's the sort of thing in student ministry that instead of being on the side of we want to go into the rehab centers, and I had friends who did that, and into the jails and things like that, my goal in student ministry on this side of it was, let's see how many we can rescue before they even get started.
Yes, and I can be your witness, because we, for 40 years, we did everything that you can imagine ourselves, or to change him, to keep him away from that, to put him in several pay facilities that with great history, everybody had the best service to provide. And it didn't work. At the point that both my parents are now dead, okay, because they dedicate their whole life trying to save him.
Yes.
When he didn't want to be saved.
Yes.
Okay, he doesn't. The only thing that every time that he comes back and do things and ask is just because he knows that's how he's gonna continue with that. And then the last time I talked to my mother, and I said, if you allow him to go back home again, because he was still living with my parents and torturing them.
Physically or emotionally?
Both. But again, because you are the parents, you think that you have to deal with yourself. You put them on this word. You think that is your fault that they are like that. And because of other family members think, oh no, you cannot take him away from your home. He's your son. Like, this is the relatives.
Who've never dealt with anything like this, so they didn't understand.
Oh, they didn't understand.
That's right.
They only don't want to have the shame of see their relatives on the street, or their relatives hitting bottom, to learn that you do have to be accountable for your actions. No, they just want, let's put under the rug, let's keep him inside the home. It's your son, you can deal with them. And that's what, when my mother finally put him out, okay, after my father was already dead, because of that, and my mother put her foot down and put him out, was the pressure of the society, of the people that don't have no business or no knowledge or nothing to handle this type of situation, pressuring her to put him inside the house again. I told her, you put him inside, you live in a coffin. And that's what happened. I lost my mother, I lost my father. With everything I tried to do, like I said, I bring them here, I provide them happiness. It didn't matter. In the end, I lost.
Yeah, and that's their son. But the thing is, they had another son and they had a daughter, which is you.
Yes.
And what happens is, for the one who did not want help, they gave y'all up to.
Yes.
And so here's what, for Youth Worker Nation, these people that are thinking about working with students or already are, and ladies and gentlemen that have been there for way too long, and they're tired, but they wonder why they need to go one more year, one more day. And great school teachers I've seen and coaches, as you and I both have. There comes a point when you've got to cut. When we're fishing, you're out in the ocean, the fish is too big, the line is not strong enough, you're not strong enough, you're going to end up going over. You're either going to lose all of your equipment, or you're going to lose your equipment and yourself.
Yes.
And someone comes along who sees a situation, who's on the boat. That's why they have these captains that will take you on these things, and they will cut the line. They'll cut the line because it's either that fish that you're never going to be able to bring in, or it's yourself. And that's what's happening with the situation with your mom and dad. They love your brother so much, and the pressures of society didn't understand. In the United States, we're understanding more, and people don't all do that as much. But this is a worldwide epidemic.
Yes.
And you did something very courageous. Tell them what you did after your parents died.
I cut the line.
You cut the line. Tell him how you did that.
I told him, I say, that you're not going to get money from me anymore. When my mother was still alive, and after my father died, I say, that was the last time I'm going to help you. That was the last time. And then I say, if you do not want help the way I want to give you help, if you don't want to help yourself, I am not going to help you more. And that was it. When my mother died, he becomes homeless. Okay, he lives on the street now. But I do have peace. I have peace because I did everything I could do for him.
Mm-hmm.
I give up so many for. I do pray for him every single day. And I still hope one day he will be safe.
Yes.
But it's not up to me.
No.
It is not up to me. After I got peace with myself, that it's not my fault, it's not my parents' fault. He has to make the decision. Until he makes that decision, I am not going to have contact with him. And I've been criticized by that. People think that I'm
From relatives
terrible.
and people that are there
Yes.
that are now they're having to
I
deal
am
with
a
it.
terrible person.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness, how I could let my brother stay on the street.
Mm-hmm.
I do help the other one because the other one get out of the situation.
Yeah.
He straight his life. Then, yes, he's with me. We are together, and we know I help him when he needs, and he can count on me. But the other one, I'm sorry.
Yeah. And for parents who are listening to this and for other youth workers, you did the right thing. And some people that are going to hear this, you're going to give them the courage to do the right thing because you have 2 little girls.
Yes.
And you have a husband that are more important than
I
a
was
brother who you
sacrificing.
love, but who refuses to actually be helped. It is not good for us. No one did him any good to help him when he didn't want help.
And it
He has to have the pressure.
was when I decided to cut that line, I think about my children because he already destroyed my parents' life.
Yes.
And he was the point that he was going to destroy my life with my children, with my husband.
Absolutely.
Because we are putting ourselves financially on that situation.
Right.
And that if he didn't make that decision, he was going to destroy another family.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And one thing that when you said what I think that it should be different, I believe that when he was 12 years old and he got involved, there was the time that he should have be more involved with youth groups, with people that has a better influence on him. That's what, looking back, that was the time to save him. That was when he was young, when he was starting to get involved with these drugs. If I believe that if we have to go back, that is the time that he could have been saved.
Yeah.
Before he start all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Then if we have more people that dedicate their time, the youth, maybe they don't become the person that he becomes in the end.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that I may think about. It's like if I have to change something, that definitely will be the one.
Yeah, and that helps a lot of people because they don't know where to turn. They don't know what to listen to. They'll listen to this in the privacy of their own home somewhere along the way, and they'll hear this and the light bulb will come on. It won't for everybody, but it will for some. And if it's only some, that's a huge win. We deal with evil in this world, and people making money off of a lot of these things, they're not concerned. They're concerned. In fact, they're happy that their little girls and their little boys are safe in their houses, but they could care less about the people that their whole families are destroyed because of the way they're making money, which is putting these drugs on the street. And that's heartless. And thank you for sharing that. That's important. Michael, thanks for being the husband you have been to support her through all of this. And thank God for the way you're treating your little girls.
One of the experiences, too, with going through this, I don't have any skills in this area of how do you, she's telling me all these things. Like, I don't know what to do with somebody who has a problem. And I was trying, I'm thinking we have to, we want everybody to do the tough love thing. We want them, we want her parents to, not bring him back home, and when he gets arrested, leave him in jail, and all these different things. So it was but I mean, from a standpoint of, this is your child, that's a tough decision to make. But like I said, Silvana, I don't know what to, what advice to offer you other than what you guys are doing.
Right,
So,
and the fact that your advice, you did go to experts.
yes.
And the experts, and this is what we found too in rehab, that very few rehab centers, if you got one that 50% of them actually get better, they feel like it's a win. The one that we sent some guys to, they were hardcore. They got the credentials to be able to be military, and they had about 75%, but they're about the only organization we'd ever heard of. And even there, sometimes you had to send them back twice in a military organization, and it was, these guys are 18 and under, not 18 and older. And here you're dealing with someone who's been, how old is he now?
He is 48.
48. And so his entire life, basically, he's been a con man and a
Since
drug
12
addict.
years old, yes.
Yeah.
He would have been a great salesperson. I mean, he was one of those people, like I sat down with him a couple times at the kitchen table while we were there, and he's a good talker, he's smooth, and I knew he wasn't, that he was lying, basically, or, he was
Right.
he was manipulating, but he was good. I'm thinking, you would be a great, businessman, a great salesperson when you were in the right situation, and he just chose not
Instead,
to
he was
do
a
it.
great salesperson in the wrong situation.
Exactly.
He always got what he wanted, but at the price of everybody else.
Yeah.
Right.
So he was good. He would play everybody, like you said, when he's, you're in a institution and everybody believes you. All the psychologists go, no, it's he's good, he's better, and the parents are like,
I started realizing after years of being student ministry, parents know more about the students I'm dealing with than I will ever know, because there's a point to where you go, oh, I know so much, and boy, these parents, they need to listen to me. You do that as teachers, you do it as coaches, you do that as youth pastors, and it's wrong. It's a lie, because you've seen them since birth. You've seen them every move they make. You've seen their attitude. You've seen their con. We all lie as children. You don't have to even teach people how to lie or how to be deceptive. You have to teach them the opposite. And so you guys have helped a lot of people by doing this and by talking about this. What are some things that you would like to leave with other parents and educators and pastors? What's one thing that you know now, but you didn't know them and wish somebody had told you?
I mean, I look back on just having, a good youth program.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was telling somebody recently, I said, if it wasn't for that program, you find something else to do,
Yeah.
and having a program that you go to, and yours was very open, although it was through a church. You would go out, you'd go to the high school and invite the kids, and so you didn't have to be a member of the church. Some youth groups, it's just the church members, but this, it's everybody. And so people were going there, you made it fun, there was, it was music, it was upbeat, we played some games, and it ended with a message. It wasn't a hard sell, and people's lives were changed, and we went on retreats and trips where there was just good things happening. And I think, when kids that don't have that, I feel really bad for, So for me...
Well, and you had parents that actually guided you guys that way, too. So there's like a triple, quadruple effect of sometimes the youth pastor alone, because or pastor or coach are the ones that lead them in the right direction when the parents aren't. But most of the time, it's the coach, it's the teacher, it's the youth pastor, it's the pastor, it's the parents, it's the grandparents.
Do you want to know one difference between me and my brother?
Yes.
I was always involved with the youth group.
Yes.
Always. One thing, because of my grandmother, that first when I was little,
Mm-hmm.
going to church with my grandmother every single day, she was very involved with that.
And when you say every single day, you meant every single day.
Every single day at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
Then later on, when I become a teenager, I start going to the youth group. Okay, then on my church, and even when we moved to another city, that's when I start high school, I got involved on the youth group there. Then my whole life, I've been involved with that. And that is one of the biggest difference between me and my brother. he never got involved. He never wants to go. He has his little group of friends. He actually make fun of me because I was always involved with the group, always at church, always doing some volunteer work. And look now, it's just that there was one big difference. We have the same parents. My parents said the same thing for me to him, same example. But that was one of the big difference. My involvement with the youth group, with the church, with several other organizations. There's always been something that I have a heart for. And look back now, yeah, that was the variable on that equation.
That's good to hear. It's good for those people that are working with students and families to hear, because it becomes a wearisome thing after a while. If you don't see some wins, media gave me a lot of wins. And that's one thing that Mark, I don't know if I should say his name, I will, Mark Zier, who was a campus life director like I was, he was also a pastor's kid. And he said, you'll get very few people to say thank you. Students are selfish. They're not going to say you're the greatest or whatever. So you're not going to get a lot of kudos. But what you will do with media is you'll get some positive feedback. And not only did the media give to the community and to the students, but it also gave back to me. It gave back to you, because people would say, oh, you took our picture. You took the time. John Clendenin, who you know of John. John talks about those years because he was around as a freshman when I first came, when you were a junior. And he talks about the medias. He talks about what those slideshows did. But you don't get a lot of kudos. For every negative thing that someone says, they used to say, it takes about 10 positive things to overcome the one negative thing. In reality, you don't get a lot of hard negative hits, but the ones you get just about knock you out of serving others. And so to hear the things that you're saying are going to send people a lot farther into the future of helping other people. And so, guys, thank you so much. Thanks for sharing your life. And there's so much more to share. So many connections, so many things happen to bring us to where we are today. And of course, Michael, I need to interview your dad and mom sometime, because their history with me carried us so far, your sister. So thank you. And thank you, Michael, for all these endless hours of volunteering to make sure that these podcast episodes get on the air. That's beyond helpful, for every story that we tell. And the reason that your story is important, we often think it's just me, it's just my family, it's just my situation. But for every story, there's 1,000 other people going through that same story. There's 10,000 people, there's 100,000 people, and every one of them think they're alone until they hear someone else is going through what they've gone through. So thanks for sharing and being there.
You've been listening to the Youth Worker on Fire podcast. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and tell your friends. Also, leave a comment and tell us what you think. Stay tuned for more informative episodes.